Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, we're going to get started in about 5 minutes. Just going to give some extra time for some extra folks to trickle in. So we'll be with you shortly. All right, so we're going to get started. Hello everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar to learn more about New York City's Water Conservation and Reuse Grant Pilot Program. My name is John Brock. I'm a policy analyst with New York City's Department of Environmental Protection's Integrated Water Management Group. We're looking forward to sharing the program with you this afternoon. All of your lines should be muted, but if not, we just ask that you please mute yourselves. We'll have time for questions at the end of the presentation. Please feel free to type your questions into the questions box through the webinar, and at the end of the webinar, we'll answer as many as we can. We will also provide contact information for folks to follow up with us directly with any additional questions. Everything that is shared during the presentation today will also be available in our grant guide, which is on our website, and the webinar will also be posted on our website after the presentation. So here's a quick agenda for the webinar. Today we will be discussing the program vision, providing an overview of the grant program itself, discussing program eligibility. Please note that some eligibility criteria has changed from last round. We will walk through the application process and timeline, provide you with more information on where you can find more resources, and answer questions at the conclusion of the webinar. So first, let's talk about the program vision. The primary goals of the grant program are twofold: to reimburse water efficiency projects on private property. So this is a reimbursement program, just to emphasize that, and to conserve potable water and reduce flows to the sewer system and wastewater facilities. Now for an overview of the grant program itself. The grant reimburses for two main things. The first is equipment. Under this program, you could receive reimbursement for WaterSense certified fixture replacements for a fixed maximum unit price, or custom water efficiency retrofits for $10 per gallon a day savings, or up to 100% of documented equipment costs, whichever is less. The grant also reimburses for third-party facility water use survey and design services. A facility water use survey design is required for all retrofit projects as part of the application, except if you are proposing a water reuse system in new construction, in which case designs will be required for the application. If you use a third party for the facility water use survey or design, we will reimburse these costs up to 20% of whatever your reimbursement equipment costs are according to your application. Please note that labor costs are not eligible for reimbursement under this program. If you are interested in WaterSense certified fixture replacements, this table walks through the fixtures eligible for reimbursement and their fixed maximum unit prices. For residential toilets that are less than or equal to 1.6 gallons per flush, they're eligible for a max rebate of $125 per fixture. Shower heads that are less than or equal to 2 gallons per minute are eligible for a max rebate of $45 per fixture. Bathroom sink aerators that are less than or equal to 1.5 gallons per minute are eligible for a max rebate of $3 per fixture. Commercial toilets that are less than or equal to 1.28 gallons per flush are eligible for a max rebate of $650 per fixture. And finally, urinals that are less than or equal to 0.5 gallons per flush are eligible for a max rebate of $600 per fixture. Funding for all fixtures, custom water efficiency projects, or water reuse projects not listed should be calculated using the custom water efficiency retrofit funding rate of $10 per gallon per day. If you're interested in custom water efficiency retrofits, here are a few examples of what they may look like. Reusing cooling tower condensate for cooling water, cooling tower makeup water, reusing condensate from Con Ed steam for cooling tower makeup water, rainwater, gray water, black water, or reuse systems. Please keep in mind that water reuse must save 1 million gallons of water per year. So if you're considering solely rainwater reuse projects, this means you will likely need to consider additional source of water savings in order to meet the saving requirements. Now we'll move on to program eligibility. To be eligible for the grant program, the proposed project must be on private property and save at least 1 million gallons of water per year. The applicant must have a DEP account in good standing, an automatic meter reading device, and at least 1 year worth of data. Each project must also cost at least $50,000 per building, included in the project. Please note that this is new criteria for this round of applications. The proposed project must also commence within 6 months following the notice to proceed. This also means that construction must wait until after the notice to proceed has been issued. It must also be constructed within 3 years of the notice to proceed. In addition, it must offset potable water use by at least 50% of water savings for which the project is designed within a year of construction completion and 90% of savings within 3 years of construction completion. The project must also be maintained for at least 20 years, which is another new criteria for this round of applications. For a project to be eligible, the applicant must also provide a complete application package, including the application form, project work plan, and documentation of current future water demand and potential savings. If your project is a water use project, the applicant must comply with Department of Building Plumbing Code, Department of Health requirements, and any other applicable rules and regulations. The number of grants awarded may be limited based on available funding. It is anticipated that up to $1 million will be available to be distributed amongst the selected applicants that agree to the terms of DEP's grant funding agreement. Applicants will be evaluated for overall water savings, so the greater savings achieved, the stronger the application. Cost effectiveness, applicants with a lower unit cost per gallon of potable water saved will score higher. Project schedule, applicants able to achieve savings on a shorter timeline will score higher. Feasibility, This is particularly applicable to innovative water efficiency retrofits, so we encourage applicants to provide detailed calculations of water saving estimates as part of their submitted project work plan in the application. And finally, co-benefits. For example, an applicant that reduces significant wastewater and/or stormwater flows through a sewer system and wastewater facilities will score higher. During the review period, DEP may request to conduct site visits in coordination with the applicant in advance of announcing grant recipients. So I just want to take a second here to remind folks that you're able to submit questions via the chat box or the question box in the webinar. So if you haven't already, or you have some questions that you'd like to ask, please take some time to send them our way, and we'll answer at the end of the webinar. Now we'll go into further detail about the application process itself and the grant timeline. The first step is to submit a grant application. The application period opens July 2020, and the deadline is set for September 15th, 2020. Your application package should include a completed application form, the project work plan, and the documentation of current and future water demand and potential savings, as I mentioned earlier. The documentation will look different depending on the type of water conservation projects you are proposing. For equipment retrofits or replacements in an existing building, excluding on-site water reuse, applicants must submit a facility water use survey for each building. For on-site water reuse systems in new construction, applicants must submit a completed DEP on-site water reuse calculator. For equipment retrofits or replacements in an existing building, including on-site water reuse, applicants must submit a facility water use survey for each building and a completed DEP on-site water reuse calculator for only those buildings with proposed on-site water reuse projects. The application can be found at the back of the grant guide on our website. If selected for conditional acceptance, DEP will send a grant acceptance package to the grantee. Conditional acceptance will be announced towards the end of this year. Once you have been selected for conditional acceptance, grant recipients will receive a grant acceptance package. This includes DEP's grant funding agreement and other paperwork. The grantee must complete all paperwork within the grant acceptance package and return it to DEP within 6 months. This will include filing a restrictive covenant, which is a requirement before submitting the funding agreement. Upon review and approval, DEP will issue a notice to proceed. All paperwork needs to be completed before construction can begin on the project. DEP will not reimburse for equipment purchase prior to the notice to proceed. Please note that this approval process and review process is lengthy and can take up to a year. After the funding agreement has been registered, the grantee will be issued the notice to proceed and construction can begin. At this time, DEP will also reimburse third-party facility water use surveys and design services up to 20% of reimbursable equipment costs. The grantee must commence construction within 6 months of notice to proceed and complete construction within 3 years. During construction and commissioning, the grantee will be required to provide quarterly and annual status reports. There will be 3 different points where costs will be reimbursed. After the notice to proceed is issued, third-party facility water use survey and design services may be invoiced. At 50% completion, any invoices that have been received at this time are eligible for reimbursement. After DEP issues the final acceptance letter, DEP will then reimburse any remaining invoices. Once the project has been completed, DEP will conduct a final inspection in order to verify that the project was constructed in accordance with the project work plan. Following this, DEP will issue the final acceptance letter. After the final acceptance letter has been received, the grantee will submit all required final documentation as agreed upon in the funding agreement and the final invoice for the water conservation project. The grantee will then be reimbursed for the remaining grant value. Now for a few notes on operation and maintenance. The constructed water conservation project must be permanent and operational for a minimum of 20 years, beginning after the final disbursement of funds. DEP will monitor annual water use via the facility's automatic meter reading. If the project is an on-site water reuse system, the grantee will be required to submit reports per the maintenance plan, which is a requirement of the plumbing code and stipulated in the grantee agreement. For the 20-year period, the project is expected to be in operation. Failure to meet the water savings goal for a minimum of 20 years or comply with any provision of the funding agreement may result in termination of the agreement and repayment of funding to DEP. We will now provide a bit more information on where you can find more resources regarding the grant program. You can visit our website with the link at the top of this slide for general information and program updates, including webinars like this one and the grant guide and application and facility water use survey requirements. You can also access and download supporting documents like the funding agreement, restricted covenant, and water calculator for reuse projects. I would like to emphasize here that it's important, particularly for property owners and legal teams, to review the funding agreement and restricted covenant so you know what is included in them. We would be happy to answer any questions regarding these documents that you may have. Finally, I'd like to go over some FAQs while we actually wait for some questions to come in and go through them. These are some frequently asked questions that come up a lot during the application process. The first one, what constitutes a building? A building, pretty simply, is a single structure on a block and lot. If I have several properties and water and sewer accounts, do I need to apply for each one separately? Multiple properties with the same property owner may be grouped under a single grant application if a total of 1 million gallons per year of potable water can be conserved, and the project is $50,000 per building included in that application. Are outdoor irrigation efficiency projects eligible for reimbursement? Yes, however, applicants are encouraged to include outdoor irrigation as a component of a larger conservation and or reuse project. Outdoor irrigation occurs seasonally and does not contribute to permanent year-round water savings. Therefore, savings must be averaged over the course of a year. What if the project has a tight schedule? After we have reviewed applications and offer conditional acceptance, the top applicants, which is expected at the end of this year, processing the grant will take a number of months. You can expect NTP will be granted in the fall 2021, so applicants should consult with DEP with questions regarding their project timeline. And finally, do sub-meters count? At this time, sub-meters are not eligible for capital funding as they do not have a specific water savings volume associated with them. So that concludes the presentation portion of today's webinar. And at this time, we're going to go through some of the questions and get to answering them along with the rest of the grant team. So we'll start looking through some questions and start replying.
Thank you, John. So yeah, we've had a couple questions come in. My name is Hannah. I'm a colleague of John and project manager for the Water Conservation and Reuse Grant Pilot Program. Our first question was if this presentation is going to be shared. And yes, we're going to post this presentation on our website after we wrap up. And then also we can email you a copy as well. The email address of water conservation at dep.nyc.gov. The next question that we received was how many projects in the first round and what's the amount of funding granted? I'm going to have Alan, the director of our program, answer that question.
Sure, thanks, Hannah. The answer is that we don't have a predetermined number of projects at this time. However, we are anticipating total program funding of approximately $1 million. So we do expect that we will distribute that amount of funding amongst several different projects.
All right, and if you have any questions, any more questions while we're all here, please feel free to ask. If you think of a question after the webinar, of course, feel free to reach out via email. And I don't know, with Alan and John, is there any other thoughts that you guys have that might be worth sharing while we're here?
Well, I see a new question.
Oh, wow.
A couple new questions are coming in. I can take the first one here. We have been recycling our wastewater for 5 years now. Can we still apply for our grants? The answer to that is unfortunately no. The grant is only available to new construction, whether it is a reuse project or a fixture retrofit project, but we cannot provide reimbursements retroactively. It has to be for a project that takes place after our funding agreement and everything under this grant program is in place. I will, though, however, mention that for folks that are not already familiar with it, DEP does offer a rate discount on water reuse projects that meet a certain threshold of savings. That is called the Comprehensive Water Reuse Program, and a link to the Comprehensive Water Reuse Program is available at the bottom of our website for this grant program.
Thank you, Alan. And we have another question that just came in. If you miss a target savings number in a particular year for something unrelated to the work performed, will you have to repay all the money? Alan, do you want to answer that?
Let me just repeat the question. So if you miss a target savings number in a particular year for something unrelated to the work performed, will you have to repay all of the money? I think the answer to that is not necessarily. If there's something that happens that results in a temporary spike in water consumption, that it can be mitigated in the long term, and savings return to normal in a reasonable amount of time, that would not result in the need to repay the funds to DEP. We're most concerned that the project is in place for at least 20 years and that those savings are permanent. However, we will not penalize anyone for any temporary spikes in consumption.
I'll also add that this is a good question that if you look through the funding agreement, you'll see how this sort of the level of specificity that's discussed, and also, there's references to, situations where there might, have to be consultation with DEP. So that's strongly encouraged to look at that for questions like this, so you can get a sense as well.
See, there's a new question. Is energy conservation a factor in your considerations for ranking project eligibility? We do consider co-benefits from our projects. In particular, we are interested in projects that will have benefits in terms of savings to flows to the sewer systems. Energy conservation would be considered amongst other co-benefits. However, it's not currently an explicit factor that we consider in our criteria.
Okay. And are there any other questions that people have? I think that's the last one that I see so far.
I think before we end, and if we have no other questions, I will just reiterate that people should please not hesitate to reach out if you are considering submitting an application. I think it's the best. We want to be we're here to help, and we're happy to talk through the details of a specific project that you are considering before you actually go ahead and submit the application. We can work with you to make sure you understand whether the project is eligible, and also to ensure that you have all of the elements of the application submitted on time by September 15th.
Okay, well, if we don't have any other questions, then just want to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar. Just to reemphasize what Alan just mentioned, feel free to contact us at the email address on the slide, waterconservation@dep.nyc.gov. Applications are due September 15th, so please feel free to reach out if you're interested or need more information, and we'd be happy to help you out. But thank you all again, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.